Hi, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
All right, extroverted feeling users. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with you. Now, I'm being a little over the top and facetious here. But as an introverted feeling user, so these are cognitive functions in the Myers-Briggs system. If you're unfamiliar, we've got a bunch of recordings talking about cognitive functions. But extroverted feeling is the function used by all FJs in the Myers-Briggs system.
And TPs.
And TPs, but I mean primarily used in the front seat of their car or the higher up on their stack. And introverted feeling is primarily used by all FPs in the Myers-Briggs system or TJs in the Myers-Briggs system. So often online, I see this a lot where extroverted feeling users say that my species, using introverted feeling, you guys are so selfish. You're so self-focused. You don't take the group into account. You don't take the collective into account. You are just all about yourselves. Why can't you stop for a moment, look up from your navel, look out and see there's a world of other people with concerns and care and needs going unmet that you can honor? Why are you so selfish? I seem to see that message. Again, I'm overplaying this for the podcast. It doesn't hit me and like I get upset by it or anything. But I've seen this, and some people do get upset by that, man. I've seen some introverted feeling users like get really upset and push back at this concept that they're selfish. And today, I think what we want to do is let's see if we can bring some harmony, you extroverted feeling users, to this concept and find some reconciliation between these two processes, because I see these almost online battles flaming up everywhere. So let's talk about this today on the podcast.
I don't think it's a bad thing that you're performing out some of that hostility, because we've seen a lot of that hostility online. The introverted feeling authenticity camp and the extroverted feeling harmony camp. Yeah, I think there is this sense that the FPs are selfish and the FJs are magnanimous. But then the FPs get triggered by that and then start talking about how bossy, and I use the word imperious in the last podcast, and I think that's actually a pretty good word for how people who use an introverted judging function, so all the perceivers, can sometimes experience those who use an extroverted judging function, so all the judgers. And I think that absolutely plays out most often between people using introverted feeling or authenticity and those using extroverted feeling or harmony. Now, in this conversation, I'm going to be representing those who use extroverted feeling or harmony. So even though it's my even though it's my 10-year-old or tertiary function, I still feel like I have enough of a relationship with it to be able to represent it. And I know you'll be taking the side of introverted feeling or authenticity. That's higher up in your stack. That's your co-pilot. So you're going to have a bit more of a direct relationship with it. But I'm going to try to do my side justice. I'm going to try to represent those, the FJs and the TPs that are using this function. I'm going to try to represent us well. And you can try to represent those using introverted feeling, all the FPs and the TJs well. And I will say that I can appreciate why there is a projection of selfishness onto people who use introverted feeling, especially those that are also introverts, right? So those using it as a driver dominant function or as a 10-year-old tertiary function, because I think it's also related to introversion in general. And I can see why people would think extroverted feeling or harmony can be bossy and a little controlling. I can appreciate that, especially those that are using it and are also extroverts, so the EFJs and the ETPs.
So I have a different take on this. I don't see it as bossy. I see both as somewhat selfish, and maybe we should define our terms, what we mean by selfish.
That would be good. So if we're talking about whether or not a function is selfish, we should probably define what selfish means.
So I look at selfish as taking more than you should take. So 6 slices of pizza, 6 people at the table. Each person gets a slice. If someone takes 2 slices, they took more than is available to everyone. So someone goes without for you to take an extra slice. So you are, in my opinion, again, I actually don't know the technical definition of selfishness, but that's kind of how I've architected my life to think in terms of selfishness, is that if I take something that someone else could benefit from away from them, that's me taking more than what they get. So it's kind of there's an equality of sorts to this in some ways, a fairness of sorts around resource in particular for me. That's how I see it, as far as like the things that are available to us. So if I take, again, 2 slices of pizza, that means one person doesn't get a slice of pizza if there's 6 of us around the table.
Yeah, and I probably would define it. Yeah, I'd probably define it similarly. I would say it's considering taking and getting yours first before you consider others. And so, I mean, that's probably a very extroverted feeling or harmony way of looking at it. But it's making sure you get yours first, or and because you're making sure to get yours first, sometimes that does mean taking so that others will not get any. Oftentimes, it just means that, I mean, even if everybody gets some, you got more, or you made sure you got yours. And if others had to go without, well, then they had to go without, and that's not your problem.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like a baseline definition that I have kind of in the back of my head. Maybe my definition will, or the way I look at it will evolve as we talk about this. I contrast that with the idea of winning and losing in some ways. So, for example, like, again, let me just say this. I see extroverted feeling as just as selfish as introverted feeling. It's selfish for something different. I guess that's the idea I want to posit. So for introverted feeling, it seems to be selfish for the individual, and for extroverted feeling, it seems to be selfish for the collective or the group. And there's still losers in both scenarios. And so it's kind of this conversation of, well, which one is more selfish, or which one is more magnanimous? There's still losers in both scenarios. It's kind of to what degree or where the focus is. So, for example, if I make a choice, if there's a group of people and I make a choice that's different, that group might say, well, you're individuating yourself away from us. Because I think that's also how extroverted feeling might define selfishness, is any individuation away from the collective consensus reality we've all agreed to. Often when extroverted feeling is defining selfishness, that's what they're talking about. They're pointing to someone individuating themselves away from the group, and they're saying that's selfish. For you to think and believe something different is selfish than the rest of us. It's not resource-based, it's belief-based for extroverted feeling often, from what I've seen, examples I've seen of people saying that. Whereas I think for introverted feeling, it's almost like, well, why are you selfishly wanting me to collectively join in with you? Just because there's more of you doesn't mean you're any less selfish. You all consensusly agree to this. All 10 of you, I'm one standing over here, I'm the 11th person. All 10 of you agree with this belief or idea. Why are you all 10 labeling me? You're just bullying. You're just a group of people saying I'm selfish for individuating away from you. Well, how come you're not selfish for individuating away from me as a collective of 10 people? Just because there's numbers, just because there's 10 of you, that all of a sudden might makes right? Or are you just as selfish? You just have safety in numbers. You just have a group. And this is where I think I moved the definition away from kind of the slice of pizza, because that's, I think, what extroverted feeling is kind of positing. When they put this forth as a definition, they're trying to say, well, there's 6 slices of pizza. There's 6 of us. Everybody gets 1 slice. I don't think that's actually what they're saying, though. I think when extroverted feeling thinks that FI or introverted feeling is being selfish, they're saying, you have individuated yourself away from groupthink. You have individuated your way against the group. You don't believe the way we believe. You don't think the way we think collectively. But here's the secret. No one in that group thinks that way. No one in that group is all believing and thinking the same way. They're all just pretending to do that, because not everybody thinks the same. Not everybody believes the same. No 2 people believe or think identically the same. So it's kind of this, so from an introverted feeling user, when we look at this, we go, that's a bunch of BS. No one thinks like that. No one has that kind of complete consensus with each other. They are sacrificing their individuality to be part of that group. And that group is selfishly demanding that they give away their identity to be part of them. And they're demanding everybody in that group do the same. I am going to rebel against that, and I'm not going to do it. And then that extroverted feeling group labels me as selfish because I've taken that stance.
Yeah. So I could totally see why somebody would experience extroverted feeling or harmony in that way. I think as a person who uses it myself, and I do recognize that it's intrinsically linked with its polarity opposite of introverted thinking or accuracy, and so therefore thought does come into it. And my experience of using extroverted feeling is that when I run into another person, it's not that I'm necessarily altering my thoughts to fit theirs. It's more that I'm looking for common ground in order to interface with them, and interface with them with the least amount of conflict possible, unless conflict is required in order to eventually get to harmony. So it's not necessarily a compromising of the self when I'm interfacing with others. It's just finding common ground. And I can recognize how somebody who uses introverted feeling or authenticity might feel like that's what's being asked of them. I think more that harmony, it's just like it gets, in the same way that it is rewarded when it's able to get other people's needs met or helps other people get their needs met, it also takes a hit when other people don't get their needs met, especially if the person who's using extroverted feeling or harmony is attached to them, that sees them, that person as part of their group. And I can recognize that might feel like collective thinking. And on some levels, it is. It's like you're a collective of people who's part of my emotional matrix. And anybody who's part of my emotional matrix, I'm going to look out for. That's part of how I'm wired. And I get rewarded for taking care of those people. And so if somebody comes into that matrix and is a disruptive influence in it and suddenly makes it very difficult or sometimes impossible to keep that simpatico and to keep that emotional equilibrium and to make sure everybody's like feeling good and in a good space and getting their needs met. And as a person who's using extroverted feeling or harmony, I'm using other people's emotions as a way to calibrate to whether or not they're getting their needs met, because the underlying assumption is that if all your needs are met, you're feeling pretty good. So if somebody comes in and creates an emotional disruption into that matrix, it becomes really difficult for me to figure out whether or not there are needs perpetually going unmet, if that person is creating needs that weren't there before, like the need to be able to be chill because that person's bringing in an intense energy or an energy that makes the entire group feel bad or wrong or pulled down. It's almost like it creates all this massive amount of work for me. And that's what feels selfish. It feels like you are taking 2 slices of the pizza. It feels like you are taking more than is your due because you've decided that whatever it is you're feeling is more important than the feelings of everybody else around you. And so you are taking more energetically than maybe you have a right to. And I think that's why harmony sometimes sees authenticity, or extroverted feeling sees introverted feeling as selfish.
So how would that be different than the group taking the individual's version of the same? So just switch that again and say, for me to enter the group, just like if I enter the group as an introverted feeling person and I cause disruption among 10 people, you're saying that creates discord. Harmony is missing. And now there's a bunch of discord there that I've thrown into the mix. Well, what's the difference between that and the inner discord I'll feel to have to change my identity or to make agreements that don't feel authentic for me? I have internal discord. Why is my internal discord okay to sacrifice on the altar of the group getting along and having harmony, but it's not okay for me to sacrifice the group on the altar of my inner turmoil? Why is the group and the external always favored over the internal from FE or extroverted feeling standpoint?
Well, I don't think it is. I think extroverted feeling or harmony allows for everybody to have a time period of not feeling well. It's why, the stereotype of extroverted feeling in this way is maybe a group of FJ, maybe like it's a girls' night out and you're going out for margaritas and everybody gets a turn to bitch about their life. So it's either that everybody goes around the table and complains about whatever's going on at their job or their kids or whatever, or we're all centering it on one person this time, but the next time we go out for margaritas, it's somebody else's turn. So extroverted feeling or harmony understands that there are individual needs that, of frustration or complex, like emotions you don't want to feel and you just need to purge. I think extroverted feeling makes space for that, but it wants to turn it into a system, right? It like wants to systematize it and make it so everybody gets a turn. I think when it projects onto introverted feeling or authenticity, selfishness is when introverted feeling always makes it their turn. Like it's always about them. It's always about the emotions that are going on with it. And it doesn't recognize that other people also have that need, and you've got to allow for other people to have their emotional turmoil experience and be there for them when they're going through that.
So let me articulate some empathy I have here for extroverted feeling. So some perspective I have that I can kind of see what you're saying. So if you're an extroverted feeling user listening right now, you'll probably understand, or you'll identify with this, and you'll kind of see the story of how I'm experiencing what extroverted feeling might be experiencing. So about 5-6 years ago, Antonia and myself and 3 or 4 other friends were in Colorado just hanging out together. And an INFP friend of ours had some special dietary needs, and we were choosing a place to go have lunch. And she became very insistent. She's an INFP, so she leads with introverted feeling as her primary dominant function. She became very insistent of having certain dietary needs accommodated. And instead of just going to whatever restaurant we all picked and then trying to accommodate her needs, she began to make all of our lives very difficult on the way to this restaurant or to where we're going to go eat while we're deciding, and got really upset with her boyfriend and everybody else that we weren't all coming to rally together to accommodate her particular dietary needs in this moment. And I can kind of get a sense of how that experience from a extroverted feeling standpoint goes, man, this person is taking more than they should take from the group. This is a slice of pizza situation, like energetically, like they were taking multiple slices of energy from the group, and we're all having to like work harder emotionally and relationally and socially to accommodate this energy which is very unhappy, wanting what they want in the moment. And we're all like trying to figure out what to do about this.
Well, just to give a little bit of like a little bit more,
Nuance.
Nuance to that particular situation. It wasn't just that they had dietary needs that needed to be accommodated, because I don't think that that's an unreasonable thing to tell people. Like, I have specific dietary needs, and like, can we go to a place that accommodates
those? That's
those?
not a problem. It's the insistence that was the problem.
Well, and also that we were visitors and they lived there. So they were familiar with all of the restaurants in town, and we were unfamiliar with them. And so in this situation, the thing that made it so difficult is that she was unwilling to provide an alternative. Like in a city in which she lived and was familiar with all of the restaurants, she was still making it everybody else's job to find the restaurant when we were unfamiliar with them. So we just kept throwing spaghetti against the wall. What about this place? No, not that place. What about this place? No, not that place. It was like, listen, this is your turf. If you've got dietary restrictions, you're going to have to be the person who figures out what to eat or where to go to eat, because we're unfamiliar with this place. And so I think that was more of it. It was like, it was our problem to solve for her, and we weren't solving it well. You know what I mean?
It was actually her boyfriend's problem that she wanted him to solve for her, quite frankly.
Right.
That's actually what was going on there.
But then we all ended up in the drama and then in the fight.
Yeah, because we got drug in, because he wasn't capable of figuring out how to solve it. So that was now all of our problem.
Yeah, and so I think it wasn't just she was insistent that we acknowledge her diet. I think it was more like we had to solve a problem that we were. I mean, we all got drug into whatever drama was going on with them, and that was sort of the whitewash that got put over. So we're sort of whatever situation was happening with them.
So again, that comes down to resource, though. And it's not about expression. It's about resource. It's not about belief or thought. It's about resource. And that makes so much sense to me. If you're an extroverted feeling user, an FJ in the Myers-Briggs system, or a TP within your back seat or your lower cognitive function stack, and you paint that scenario to me, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say, yeah, that person is taking more than their share of energy. They're taking weight, or like they're sucking the air out of the group, and they're making it a bad experience for all of us, because they're like the resource of energy and time and interfacing is being taken up. And that's, to me, I don't think that's cool. Like I have a problem with that too, even as an introverted feeling user.
Well, and I can give my empathetic story of extroverted feeling or harmony being obnoxious by thinking about a childcare provider for Piper who is an ESFJ, who had this insistence that everybody interface with her in this like overly bubbly, happy way. But at the same time, as soon as you entered her world, she was so patronizing to everybody. She was so like, she talked down particularly to all the men. She acted like any man that came to drop their kid off was an idiot and had no understanding of children whatsoever. Like when you entered her world, you were in her world and you had to agree with all of her ideas. And so even though she had this like, hi, how are you doing, honey? She had this like almost sticky sweet demeanor, and everything had to be happy. And if you brought any problems or conflict, it was like she was this overly sticky sweet commandant immediately. Like, we're not going to have those problems, are we? And she would like she'd call me my name, but she'd call you dad. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was a person, but you were an avatar of idiocy or something. Like, it was like, we're not going to have that problem, are we, dad? Right? We're not going to have that problem. And I mean, it was like weird. It was like walking into bizarro land. So I think the corollary to the introverted feeling authenticity, every problem is somebody else's to solve for them. And if you don't solve them the way they want them to have, you know, that person wants it to be solved, then suddenly they're just going to disrupt everybody with their bad mood. I think the opposite end is that like weird, like sticky, sweet commandant energy of just everybody's an idiot but them, and they're going to just say that with a smile pinned to their face, and they're 100% in charge and don't think that you're ever going to be at all, you know what I mean? Like, they've got it set up, and that is like you are walking into their world. So I could totally see how an FP entering that, or a TJ entering that domain would just be like, no, I want to get as far away from this energy as possible.
That used to make me mad when my kids were little, and it's like, oh, bless your heart, sweetie. And like, you know, FJs would come in and try to show me how to like child rear or take care of a child. You know, I've had multiple kids now, and I've got like Piper, our youngest, changing a diaper. Oh, let me help you. Like, they try to come in and like show you the way. And I realized early on, wait, I shouldn't get offended by this. I should just act even dumber, and then I get stuff done for me. I don't have to do anything. Like, I'll just, oh, really? That's how you change a diaper? I'm just an idiot. All right, whatever. And then I don't have to like do extra stuff, which I thought was really, I guess I won out on it instead of getting upset about it. But yeah, that's exactly true. I think that's something that like we're forced to interface in this social way. Or even, I mean, you could even look at like a company party or something, like all these, like you gotta behave in these certain ways that the FJs seem to be in charge of. As an introverted feeling person, you're just like, man, really? We're gonna do this? Okay, I guess we'll have to make all this small talk and do all these interfacing things. Like, it keeps everybody happy and there's no fights. I mean, family reunions and weddings and office parties and the domain of extroverted feeling, it's kind of the requirement. You enter those spaces and it's like, you've got to behave by these rules so everybody has all their needs met and there's no discord at all. And I think for introverted feeling, that can feel a little bit challenging. And I would say most mature introverted feeling users, FPs and TJs, get this idea of somebody demanding the restaurant and it taking the gravity out. I mean, I think we can get that. I think the challenge comes when we believe something different, or we have a different expression we want to have. We want to wear something maybe different that's inappropriate to wear to that whatever, or we want to express ourselves. So when it comes to belief and expression, this is territory that I think introverted feeling can't understand as easily. It can't understand the idea of suppressing who you are for a group. Just because they're a group, they should win out over that. Like, just because there's one of you and 10 of them, that means your expression, the way you believe and think and show up, has to be suppressed away from like, it has to be suppressed in order to interface with that group. That, I think, is the core that even a mature introverted feeling person, which I hopefully consider myself, that's still a struggle for me to understand that requirement, not just to, and often it's not even just the behavior. They really want often it can be the behavior, but it's really buy into this. Like, you've got to buy in, and I just can't do it. And I think that's where the extroverted feeling people start to project onto me selfishness when I just refuse to interface that way.
Yeah, and I can also understand that when you're dealing with, you know, sort of that sticky sweet pin a smile on your face, but insistent that the world works the way they want it to work. I can totally understand why that is like sort of that caricature of extroverted feeling can be very off-putting. And I think all of us kind of hate that. Like, other FJs and TPs hate that too, I think, to some extent. I think we can kind of understand it more so it doesn't bother us as more, but nobody builds intimacy with a person like that. Or I think it was very hard to interface with them. But to speak to what you're saying, that element that's like hard to be willing to sacrifice the self for the collective and the demands on it, I think the corollary is that extroverted feeling or harmony, that's their daily experience. Like, that there is a reward for them. So it's not like they're constantly taking a hit for that feeling of sacrifice. it's just sort of how you live your life. You put yourself second. Your kids' demands come before yours. Your spouse's demands, not demands, but your spouse's requests come before yours. You build sort of this general state of putting yourself second, that when there are moments when you get to take the floor, like I think of one of the easiest examples is, the wedding day. Now, of course, it's gone crazy into Bridezilla category where people are like, it's my day and I'm going to spend what should be the down payment on a house on this stupid day, right? I mean, I think it's gone irrationally ridiculous, but I mean, everybody gets to make their choices of how they want to do things. When I say irrationally ridiculous, I mean, I personally would feel like it's irrationally ridiculous to be a bridezilla and spend $20K on a wedding, but I also don't have $20K to spend on a wedding, so that's probably why I feel that way. That said, I know that it can get overdone, but there are these, like I said, extroverted feeling or harmony creates a system for things. Everybody gets their day. Everybody gets their time. And that means complaining about your life over margaritas. Everybody gets their time to do that, and everybody gets their time to have a day. So if like an introverted feeling person is, say, walking into somebody else's wedding, and that's considered their day. I'm not even going to say the bride's day because I think that's kind of silly. I think it's their day. It's the bride and the groom's day. And it's the one time where everything can be a celebration of those people and the culmination of their love and the commitment they're about to make to each other. And it's their day to do that. And extroverted feeling or harmony has created a system where they get that one day. And somebody who's maybe using introverted feeling or authenticity doesn't want to have to observe that, right? They want to wear whatever they want to, right? Like maybe the bride and groom has requested that everybody wear like a certain color palette so that the pictures will come out a certain way and they can commemorate it. And, this is what they've requested. And somebody comes in and goes, nope, I'm going to wear whatever I want to wear. And it's like, really? You can't just give that one thing to them? That was like the one thing they asked. It's not like they're asking to like be able to choose your clothes for the rest of your life. Like, can you do this one thing for them? And I think that's one of the reasons why extroverted feeling can project onto introverted feeling a sense of selfishness. It feels like introverted feeling won't do it ever. Like it won't do it even for those one days. Now, obviously, mature introverted feeling or authenticity can also appreciate that, and they can also understand that. But I think one of the challenges that introverted feeling has is it doesn't know, it doesn't, like you said, you don't understand why somebody would do that. So you don't, it's hard to appreciate that there are rewards for it that extroverted feeling gets. There's intrinsic reward for it that harmony gets from that. So it's not like it's all hit. There is reward, otherwise it wouldn't be able to do it sustainably. But there is some hit for it, right? The reward is what keeps it going, but also it is an energetic hit you take when you're constantly putting other people first. And so when you've built a system where it is your time, and somebody who uses introverted feeling all of a sudden decides that it's their time too, and they haven't been taking those hits along the way, to extroverted feeling harmony, it almost feels maddening. It's like, you can't even give me like one thing, really? Just one? Like, I don't do this very often. Can you give me the one time that I'm going to make it about me?
I think that I appreciate extroverted feeling harmony's processing to have a pulse on when someone's taken too much, like the gravity of the space of the room, or the metaphoric slices of pizza. They just get a sense of, you've taken a lot of space here. You've taken a lot of pizza, quote unquote, and it doesn't feel like they have a better relationship with how much should be taken out of the system or put back in the system. And I think that's a beautiful thing that extroverted feeling does. Harmony provides this container to kind of get a sense of it. And you can see this, I think the whole idea, and I've mentioned this on a recent podcast, this idea of emotional labor. I think extroverted feeling kind of knows it ends up as the one, or the person using extroverted feeling is the one that ends up doing more emotional labor than other types. And and I think there's a collective sense of, hey, yeah, we've been doing a lot of emotional labor lately. Like, it feels like there's been a lot taken out of the system than we've been given in the system. So maybe some things need to change. So I think that's extroverted feeling saying this is unequitable. The balance is off here. So we gotta get our needs met too. We can't just continually give forever emotionally all the time. And I think that is a valid perspective. And I appreciate that about extroverted feeling and harmony, bringing that perspective to me as an introverted feeling user. That's been a great benefit for me to learn and appreciate on that side.
Well, and I will say on the side of the person who uses extroverted feeling or harmony, I've also noticed that sometimes we project selfishness onto other people when they've simply given themselves permission to do things that we haven't given ourselves permission to do yet. So it's actually from a place of envy than it is from energy, that concept of you were basically saying that extroverted feeling or harmony can get good at directing energetic traffic. And I agree with that. And the higher up it is in the car model or in your cognitive function stack, the better you are at that. And also, one of the blind spots of extroverted feeling or harmony is knowing when you have permission to take for yourself. And so sometimes it doesn't come from a place, like a projection of selfishness doesn't come from a place of energetic traffic, control. It comes from a place of just sheer envy and going like, I wish I had permission to be able to take for myself. And I think one of the lessons that extroverted feeling or harmony users can take from introverted feeling or authenticity is this idea that you as an individual matter. Like what is going on for you is important too. And if you would need to express, if you've got needs that are going unmet and you don't acknowledge that and you just shove them down or you bottle them up or you kick that can to the future, you cannot show up. That's unsustainable. You can't show up in perpetuity doing that. You will actually end up being passive aggressive, or you will end up being exhausted, or you will end up being resentful of the people around you when really they didn't necessarily ask that from you. You just gave it. You gave them something they weren't asking from you. But of course, we all get used to that, right? If somebody just gives and gives and gives to us and it seems like they're fine, the system will now accommodate for that giving, and the person will stop seeing it as a special thing. They'll just start seeing it as how life works. And eventually people who use extroverted feeling or harmony, they get into those dynamics and they get so resentful of the people in their lives. And if they don't check in with themselves and they're not honest about what's going on for them, then this idea of being selfless and magnanimous and constantly giving it's their false virtue that they're putting on top of resentment and anger and all sorts of terrible emotions that come out then and they will figure out ways to have that steam come out. There will be ways in which they will punish the people around them to try to change the system. But of course, then that just creates toxic, codependent relationships. So this idea that extroverted feeling or harmony is always magnanimous is not really acknowledging sort of the laws of energy exchange. And so I think the lesson that introverted feeling or authenticity can give to those of us who use harmony is, hey, you need to check in with yourself. You've got needs too, and you've got to make sure that you're expressing them. Otherwise, you're just sweeping everything under the rug. And the extroverted feeling or harmony user might not experience it as an emotion of envy. Like that might not be how it feels. It might be it might feel like resentment, but it actually is envy. It is the envy that we feel when other people have a sense of freedom that we lack. And it feels to extroverted feeling like introverted feeling has a freedom of expression that we bottle up. And so it's hard to make peace with it being an emotion of envy. It's hard because it feels more like, it feels like resentment, but resentment's root is in envy. So if you want to let go of resentment, you got to let go of envy. And I think this is even the people that we end up serving. Like we resent them because we envy that they're in a position of being able to take, as opposed to being in the position of having to give. So resentment is always built on envy. So if you're feeling resentment, that's its root. And I think that for extroverted feeling or harmony, one of the best ways to create a more sympathetic relationship with introverted feeling or authenticity and to have a more compassionate view of it, like the view we want to have. Honestly, harmony people don't want to be in conflict. We just don't. We don't like it. And so when we're feeling negative, nasty, icky emotions about somebody else, that always feels wrong to us. It always feels off. It's just sometimes we don't know what to do about it. So if we're feeling that way about introverted feeling or authenticity, then instead of resenting it and, like kind of pushing it away and going, well, that's just selfish. Maybe taking a lesson from it is the way to go, which is they're giving themselves permission to have those feelings and to be a disruptive energy. And sometimes I need to do the same thing.
So from my perspective, introverted feeling, again, I look at harmony, extroverted feeling, wanting to solve the problem of discord by getting us all on the same page. If everybody could buy into the same consensus reality of how everything should socially work, what the manners are, what the customs are, the right way to interface with people, the right way to dress. If we could all get on the same page on a global level, all conflict would stop. Like all we have to do is sync up. That's how it feels to me from the introverted feeling side. It feels like that's what extroverted feeling wants, is all of us to buy into the same reality. And from my side, I look at FE, extroverted feeling harmony, and I say, why can't we just agree to disagree? Why do we all have to agree in order to have harmony? Can't we also just agree to disagree and also have harmony? Why do we have to believe the same thing? Why do we have to have the same consensus reality? Can't we make space for everybody to have their own individual expression?
Well, I think seasoned extroverted feeling or harmony does understand that. I think it's less mature extroverted feeling that insists everybody have the same worldview or insist everybody have the same belief structure. I think as it becomes, well, it's okay to do that. It's okay to feel that way as long as you're not going to interface with anybody outside of that belief matrix. If you're going to be insular just with the people who believe the same thing as you do, and you're never going to go into the outside world outside of that belief structure, it's perfectly fine to feel that way. But if you're going to interface with anybody outside that belief structure, which of course everybody has to, we all have to interact with people who don't agree with us, then the more seasoned extroverted feeling gets, the more it makes space and opens up for people disagreeing with us on a mimetic level and recognizes that people are people, and it has compassion for people regardless.
I like this idea of compassion coming from extroverted feeling. I think it does have compassion. I think of again, we've never met him in person. He's passed away now, but Mr. Rogers. I expect Mr. Rogers to have been a extroverted feeling user, a harmony user. He just seems like he's got that vibe. And the compassion this man had for people, the compassion this man had for children really touches me on a deep level. Like I am very impacted by watching things about Mr. Rogers, even as an introverted feeling user. Like it impacts me on a personal, deep core level. And I think there's a key here that introverted feeling has, which is that the more personal something is, the more universal it is. So if something deeply impacts me on a personal level, then I assume it's impacting other people on a personal level. If I feel something very strongly in myself, I make the assumption other people feel those kind of things strongly in themselves. And I think one of the things that extroverted feeling can showcase to us introverted feeling users is a sense of principled love, principled caretaking. Regardless of the person, regardless of how they show up in the world, extroverted feeling is like, well, they're a person and they deserve compassion and connection and caretaking. Now, I may not agree. The extroverted feeling person may say to themselves, I don't agree with any of the stuff they do, but I can still caretake for them. And there's like this principled love. I think this is mature extroverted feeling. It has this principled, almost agape love sense.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter how horrible a person was when they're in hospice, you still caretake for them.
Correct. But because introverted feeling has such a sense of what's personal must also be universal, I don't think we have as much compassion sometimes because we don't have as much compassion for ourselves a lot. We might see the darkness in our own hearts or all the stuff that's icky or kind of stuff we don't want to come out. And we go, well, everybody else must. We have one of two responses. And we've talked about this on earlier podcasts is we go, oh, no one else must experience this at all. I must be the worst person on the planet. Or, oh, I'm experiencing this, so most people must experience this darkness of their heart. So I don't have much compassion for myself around these things. I don't give myself a pass on this. Why would I give anybody else a pass on this? Why would I accommodate that for anyone else? But I think extroverted feeling can give us a sense of caretaking even when it doesn't strike us to the core of our being, or even when we can't find the compassion in ourselves for something that's going on for ourselves. That's the lesson I've learned a lot from extroverted feeling, is that even if I can't find the inner compassion, I can still have compassion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think that that concept of agape or principled love might be a little easier for extroverted feeling or harmony to grasp than introverted feeling. I think even the most compassionate introverted feeling or authenticity users, I think one of the blind spots that they can have is that they can cycle through and understand their emotions in a way that is impressive to somebody like me. Like, I'm impressed by how they can process their emotional experience. And so because of that, there can be sort of almost a cavalier nature with allowing other people to go through emotionally difficult times or going through like something that's like emotionally distressing, because, you know, we all overvalue our own experience. Like you were mentioning, there's a sense that like, well, they'll get through it. They'll figure it out. And some of us don't have enough emotional acumen to be able to figure out like the really traumatic things. Like, we just struggle our whole lives to try to figure out like what was that and why did it happen and what was happening there. And so I think there's there can almost be like an emotional cavalier nature to people who use introverted feeling or authenticity. On the other, I mean, it's almost like they're willing to be mean in some ways because they assume everybody will get through it. It's a very similar thing that introverted thinking or accuracy does, you know, as a TP. Like, I don't understand why people don't understand certain concepts. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And when they don't, it's easy to dismiss them. If somebody's gone through something difficult and they can't process it emotionally, I think sometimes introverted feeling people are almost dismissive of it. And like, well, that shouldn't be that difficult. Like, you should be able to get through that. And so the sense that we are gentle with people and we're maybe even more gentle than the person needs comes more from extroverted feeling or harmony, I think. Now, sometimes I think we overdo it. Those of us who use extroverted feeling or harmony, we will allow ourselves to get caught up in a drama triangle of being heroes with victims. We'll see victims everywhere and people who can't handle anything. And we like overdo our gentleness and overdo our nurturing nature and go like, well, you know, you can't be mean to anybody ever, which I think is also an unseasoned perspective. The more harmony gets seasoned, the more we recognize that people do need we need a thicker skin to survive reality. And that's a need of ours, right? So to overprotect people is a tendency that actually doesn't get the person's needs met. That's actually selfish on the extroverted feeling or harmony user's part, because we don't want to go through the distress of having to watch somebody go through distress because we pick up and absorb their emotions. So in an effort to protect ourselves from having to observe somebody go through something distressing, we will overprotect them and we won't let them go through that, even though that legitimately is a need of theirs to toughen up for reality. You can see this in like how those of us who have extroverted feeling or harmony treat our kids sometimes. We're sometimes massively overprotective. And that's not good. That's actually bad. We're not serving our children by being overprotective. But what comes along with that is that sense of agape, that sense of compassion, that I do believe that that is something that introverted feeling, if you can separate it out from the overprotective piece, which is the dark side of that, if you can see the compassion itself in the agape, I do believe that is a good lesson to learn from extroverted feeling.
So I want to posit a question here to go back to the selfish question, kind of a scenario, an abstract scenario as a thought exercise for us to walk through and you listening to walk through with us. So let's just take a group of 10,000 people that believe a certain way and one person that doesn't believe that way or behave that way. Like, let's say there's a custom, like maybe there's a certain way of behavior, a social dynamic that's set up among these 10,000 people, and they believe this is the right way to behave. This is like the best manners, the best way to behave. There's a whole social code that goes with these 10,000 people. And there's a person that decides that that's not the code they want to live their life by. Well, first of all, they probably feel like if to interface, that group is going to almost require them to alter their individuality to come into an interface with that group. That group might call that person selfish if they decide to take their individuality over here for themselves. And if that person came into that group of 10,000, let's say I walked into that group of 10,000, I said, here's the new custom I want you to adopt. Here's the custom, the way I think the world should work, the manner, the custom, the social cues, and the social dynamic you should all adopt. that 10,000 people would look at me and go, what the heck? You're one person. We're not going to go with what you, unless I'm a really strong leader or able to affect change in some way or demand it. I'm probably going to be absorbed in the system. The system won't be kowtowing to me. And so that's kind of the dynamic we started talking about, this group of people and then an individual outside that group of people. Well, what if you took that 10,000 people and you almost abstractly considered them one person, just for a second, like a corporate body of sorts? And there's 7 billion people on the planet. That 10,000 people maybe has customs and social cues and all these things that are there. And often there's religions and movements and social causes and all that with about 10,000 people in it, right? That want to affect change in the world. And they want to be that individual that enters the group of 7 billion and try to alter 7 billion people into their way of thinking. And they think that's altruistic. Those 10,000 collectively wouldn't look at themselves as almost like an individual being selfish, trying to take something, even though they would look over to the side at the one person coming into their group as being selfish or trying to take over or trying to force themselves onto the group. There's a thought exercise question is, why when we get into these groups of 10,000, we don't realize just how selfish that collective is, that FE collective social cue or social dynamic that's set up to project that onto the rest of the world. And this is happening now in our world. We've got a lot of social movements and religions and cults trying to project themselves onto our world way of thinking. Why do we look at them and go, that's honorable, that's great, that's decent, it's under the guise of helping everybody. But really it's what they want. It's what that small group wants, whether it's 10,000, 100,000, 10 million, I don't know. It's certainly not the whole planet on the same page. So why do we look at the one side with the one person coming into the 10,000 as kind of this selfish dynamic where the group's like, well, that person's selfish. They're trying to take more than their share. But we don't with the collective 10,000 to the 7 billion people on the planet.
Is that meant to just be a thought exercise for the audience, or can I?
I want to talk about it.
Okay.
I want to kind of freeform here. And you listening, as we're going along with this, what are the ideas coming up for you too?
Okay, because I have thoughts. I have things.
Of course you do.
Yeah, I always have a thought. So the answer from my perspective is that we're always going to move the goalpost in a way that benefits us and our opinion of ourselves. Like our egos are the manifestation of selfishness. Like we really, 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 really want to think well of ourselves. And so anything that we possess or own, we're going to we're going to spit shine it. We're going to put a nice sheen on it to make it appear awesome. And anything that is somebody else's that threatens our ego, we're going to demonize and push away. So if a person is using extroverted feeling or harmony, and they're in something like you're talking about, a collective of a group of people who are pushing what they believe is a positive agenda on the world, regardless of whether or not that is accurate, they're not going to own that that's a selfish pursuit. They're just not going to own that because nobody wants to think of themselves as selfish. If you see the one individual person who is resisting a change that is potentially good for the world or isn't, right? It almost kind of doesn't matter. That one person who's rooted themselves there is not going to think of themselves as selfish either. They're going to think of themselves as heroic or convicted or making a stand. We're always going to alter the perspective to suit our ego and how we want to see ourselves. I think when it comes down to it at the end of the day, though, that selfishness is not the product of a cognitive function. A cognitive function is a tool. That's all it is. Selfishness is the product of the individual. And on top of that, I think we need to make peace with the fact that all of us are selfish. Like we just are. That is our core characteristic as a species that has not only survived, but have worked our way out of the food chain. Like we've thrived as a species. And so because of that, or not because of it, we have done so through selfishness, our desire to live, our will to live, our will to dominate over land and dominate over other creatures. Like that's how we've gotten as far as we've gotten. So selfishness is one of those things that we accuse each other of, but very rarely own for ourselves, even though we're right to accuse others. We're just wrong to not accuse ourselves.
And extroverted feeling is good at hiding their selfishness. Is that what I can posit here?
Well, I think extroverted feeling is They have that
Collective
function.
selfishness. It's like they can hide in numbers in a way.
I think what it is that extroverted feeling has its finger on the pulse of how serving the group serves the self. Like it understands that dynamic. That's a rather complex dynamic, actually, to recognize how serving others ultimately serves the self.
So then, wouldn't that then? Did I cut you off, by the way? Was that in the middle of a thought?
No. I mean, I was going to flay it out a little bit more, but that's okay. I can do that after you talk.
Well, I was just after I talk.
No, I mean,
speak forth. I was going to just to throw in there, and this might also help as you're answering that or thinking through that. In that, so how big does the group have to be before it's not selfish? Is the question. So you got that 10,000, one individual. Well, you can't come in here and just throw your weight around. But what if it's like half the size of the group? 5,000 people are coming now, or 8,000, or 9,999. Like when does the group now become the cover for any selfishness that might be among it?
I think it
for
doesn't.
Extroverted feeling.
It doesn't. Well, I mean, are we talking about from the perspective of somebody who's using extroverted feeling but doesn't want to see themselves as selfish?
Well, it appears to seem that there's a threshold of a group size that once it's reached, extroverted feeling doesn't see that anymore as selfish. There's almost like a metric in a way that once there's enough people that buy into this is just the new reality. It's the new consensus reality. Again, I'm coming a little bit from a devil's advocate space from introverted feeling side, right? I'm speaking up on behalf of all, like if you're listening, you're introverted feeling, I'm kind of representing your voice. And I'm embodying this to say, this can be a perspective we have on this side, is that it's almost like, well, and I don't know what that number is, but seemingly to us as introverted feeling users, it feels like there's a certain threshold that's met. And then all of a sudden, this is now an acceptable reality. Like right now, there's not enough people on the planet that believe in a flat earth to make it a viable belief structure because just there's not a critical mass. And so if they were like, we should operate the earth as if it's flat, we would be like, well, those people are selfish. They're just kind of like self-absorbed in their own belief structure that doesn't match up. But if enough people believe that, I mean, people in cultures in the past did really whack stuff because enough people believed it was reality or true. So what's the threshold for extroverted feeling before they, like, what's the number, the metric that then tips it over into, this is no longer a selfish or just a self-focused view. This is what it all is for everybody.
I guess the only way that I could state it in introverted feeling terms is how much of your inner counsel has to be on board with before it considers the action selfish. Like how many of your internal voices have to be on board before it stops, when it feels valid to take an action? Because that's really what it is. It's like, and the answer is it completely alters from person to person. And that's basically what it is. Extroverted feeling is just looking like if it feels like it has to have safety in numbers, it will change from person to person to make it feel safe enough to go, well, this should be the new reality. Just like introverted feeling, it's going to change from person to person how much of their inner world has to be on board before it feels like this is a valid new reality to push outwards.
So for extroverted feeling then, 10 people on a deserted island, the threshold is much different than a world of 7 billion people. Like it's going to be basically contextually dependent is what you're saying for that threshold to be met, for reality to be projected from extroverted feeling.
Well, and also it's going to depend on the developmental level of the person using extroverted feeling. Like a younger person is probably going to feel more safe the more voices agree with it. An older person using extroverted feeling is going to feel more safe having fewer of those words or fewer of those voices echoing them. Like extroverted feeling, of course, is the polarity opposite of introverted thinking. And introverted thinking doesn't really need any outside interference in order to believe its own thoughts. Like it determines its sense of rationale all on its own and its logic all on its own. And so the more seasons extroverted feeling gets, the more it's going to bring in introverted thinking. And introverted thinking doesn't need safety in numbers to believe what it believes. It also is a space that gives other people space to believe whatever they want to believe. So extroverted feeling, as it gets seasoned, as it gets mature, is far less likely to knock people over the heads with their own beliefs and concepts. It's looking for harmony. And it's very easy for extroverted feeling when it's young to conflate agreement with harmony. And those aren't the same things.
That's a great point. Say that again.
The younger extroverted feeling is, the more likely it is to conflate agreement with harmony. And those two things are different. And so I don't remember what I was going to say because I repeated that thought. That when extroverted feeling is caught up in something, like sometimes it gets caught up in a cacophony of voices, and there will be a part of it isn't just. I would actually say that a part of it isn't just that everybody is now on board with the thing that I think is important. I mean, I've been in a religion that used to collect, anywhere between 10 to 20,000 people in a single stadium for conventions. And there's power in having that many souls, you could say, that many human bodies, all gathered for the same purpose and all thinking similar thoughts. And, like when they would sing or when they would all clap together or whatever, like there's an almost spiritual component to it. And I think everybody likes that. There's like a sense that it's really very rewarding to have everybody collected to have that experience. But I think
it's home field advantage for a football game, right?
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty for extroverted feeling. Like for harmony to have that many people on board with something, it's so easy to get caught up in it and go, this must be true. This must be because it's real, right? Like this must be real. And I could understand why getting caught up in something like that would be very motivating to want more energies to come in and have an even bigger collective of people who are doing that. I mean, that's what I did when I was raised in that particular religion and having those kinds of experiences. I was a missionary. I wanted other people to come in and experience that with me. So I don't know if it's necessarily, I don't think it's about everybody thinking the same thoughts. I think it's wanting people to be able to experience something like that with you, and then looking for anything that would be disruptive to having that sense, that feeling of all of our energies are together. But it's also unrealistic. It's the same fantasy that introverted feeling or authenticity has, that literally every part of it will always like having a feeling that every decision you make will just resonate so internally, and there will be no part of you that thinks that this is a bad idea. Like there's always going to be some part of you that doesn't want whatever this thing that's good for you is. There's always going to be some part of you that is like not on board with it. It's a fantasy to believe that literally every part of you will all hum with the same song to go forward and do something. Like basically introverted feeling has to get good at like knowing what's the sweet spot. Like most of me is on board with this, and so therefore it's a good thing. I think extroverted feeling's fantasy is that everybody's going to be on board at some point with whatever it thinks is the important thing to think. It's a fantasy, and the younger you are, the more likely you are to be a fantasist because you haven't had as much reality beat into you. So if introverted feeling is looking at somebody using extroverted feeling or harmony and going, why are you beating everybody over the head with however you think reality is supposed to be, whether that's an agenda or a religious persuasion or a movement or just, I don't know, like Emily Post and her belief of everybody should be doing manners in a certain way. If introverted feeling sees that as some sort of, I don't know, like steamrolling of behavior, the intent is to get everybody to be able to feel that sort of humming sense of simpatico that is so rewarding to extroverted feeling. And of course, extroverted feeling is going to overvalue its own experience and think everybody is going to feel that same level of reward. But it really is positively intended. It really is. Just like introverted feeling can look so selfish to extroverted feeling, like it's all about itself. But introverted feeling doesn't want to do anything that it thinks will be harmful, right, to itself or to others. That dig your feet in, don't do anything that you don't want to do is oftentimes simply, I don't want to do anything I'm going to be accountable to myself for later. I don't want to do anything that's going to like harm my conscience or hurt my conscience and find out later that I did something that I couldn't really think about, that I didn't have the proper time to check in with myself and end up doing something terrible for both myself and for other people. An extroverted feeling can be like, well, why do you always have to make it about you? And why are you digging your feet in? And why do you always have to make it about what your expression is? And introverted feeling is going, well, because I want to make sure I'm in alignment with myself. And I want to make sure that I'm resonating with other people too, right? And so there can be a projection of selfishness onto others that is really a lack of deep awareness and understanding of how these functions work. And I think at the end of the day, if we remember to project positive intent on both ourselves and onto other people, I think we'll get much closer to what's really going on than if we simply see the other and don't understand how it's operating and why it's operating the way it is and go, oh, well, you must just be being deliberately obnoxious, right? That's how we always project it onto others. And the two feeling functions, I think, have so much to learn from each other and have a lot in common. They really have a lot in common. So getting to a place where you see what they have in common and understand where each function can learn from the other, I think it's more powerful with these two pieces locked together than pulled apart and judging each other.
I think that is very well said. And it's my choice to move forward as an introverted feeling user. And I would encourage you to do the same if you're an introverted feeling user or even an extroverted feeling user, is as I move through the world, I want to continually look for the ways that I can learn from extroverted feeling. I can appreciate it. I can help make my own process better by seeing examples of how it plays out in the outer world that I can bring internally into my own experience. And if you're an FJ user, an extroverted feeling user in the Myers-Briggs system, and you can look at introverted feeling and look and see how maybe you can get in touch with your inner state, your inner motivations, your inner intents that are happening for you. I think these two perspectives, like coming and trying to understand the other side and what can I learn from this process, is really powerful. At least it's been powerful for me, and I choose to continue my life going forward in that way to find more and more understanding and learning that I can find there. So you've been hanging out with us on this podcast, and you've got one of these in your cognitive function stack or CAR model. It may be in a lower position, like a 3-year-old or inferior or 10-year-old or tertiary position, but you are using introverted feeling or extroverted feeling somewhere in your personality. So all of us have experiences with these two functions, and we'd love to hear your story about your experience with the other, with your process, and then with the other process on the other side of the aisle. How do you experience this? What comes up for you? What things have you learned about yourself or the other process that you don't have or you don't share? What are the things that have been ahas for you, learning? What are things you're still frustrated about? What are things you're like, I just don't understand this thing about introverted feeling or extroverted feeling? Like it just confuses me or it frustrates me or makes me mad, makes me angry. Come over to personalityhacker.com directly below this show, leave your comment, ask your question, or share your story with the community. We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and various Android platforms. Leave us a rating and review on iTunes. We love reading them. So please leave us a rating and review. And also, our book is available. It's called Personality Hacker, and it is available in all major book retailers. If you leave us a rating and review on Amazon or on Goodreads or another platform like that, that also helps us out a lot.
Who is a friend or family member that needs to be a part of your weekly listening to this podcast? So that way you can talk about the concepts, the ideas with them. Please, let's introduce ourselves to each other. Introduce us to a friend or family member of yours. Let's connect, and that way you've got a study buddy, quote unquote, to talk about some of these ideas with in real time as you go through your life. So if you introduce us to somebody, that really helps reach out for your social network to start building people that are interested in the kind of growth things that you're focused on around type. So please, let's expand the reach of people that can contribute to the community. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
And we will talk with you on the next Personality Hacker podcast.